Welcome to American Dreams. My guest today is Gareb Shamus. Gareb, good to have you on our show.
I was so happy to be here. Love talking about superheroes.
So, Gareb, you have a very unique background. You've been at the birth of a few movements, Comic-Con, trading card games, independent action figure makers, and I'd like you to spend a little bit of time educating us of how you fell into building the communities that you have.
Hi, so I'm Gareb Shamus, and I've been in the superhero business my entire life. And luckily, I grew up with three brothers and collecting sports cards and comic books. And then when I was a kid, my mom actually opened up a sports card and comic book store. So I had literally a candy store in the family since I was a kid. And then when I graduated, I couldn't get a job, so I worked at the store and then started a newsletter about comic books. And then shortly thereafter, turned that into a magazine called Wizard. I was 21, 22 at the time, and I wanted to just share my passion for comic books with everyone in the world. And little did I know, it worked. And within a few years, I was selling literally 300,000 to 400,000 copies of the magazine in 75 countries. So by the mid 90s, I decided to throw a little party for the magazines, called it Comic-Con, and then 20,000 people showed up. And it was this really magical, it was just a magical time because all these disenfranchised people that were into comic books and trading cards and movies and television and gaming, everybody all came together in one place to share this passion. And we were geeks and nerds at the time, and that was not cool back in those days. But so for everyone to come together and feel comfortable to be in this environment and share their passion was just, it really galvanized that whole movement. And then cut to today, I've produced with my brother over 180 Comic-Cons, sold 5 million tickets, but we've reached billions and billions of people and have had just a tremendous impact on not just the superhero fan culture, but I think all cultures kind of borrowed from what we did to engage people. So yeah, my whole life has been community building.
I'm going to call this, oversimplifying the fact that you have a tremendous gift that you've given to the world in building these communities. But I want to go down a little bit deeper and ask the question, Gareb, how did you know when you were connecting your community together? I mean, it's one thing to say I'm going to do a magazine, but how did you know that the level of engagement, did this thing go exponential or how did you see this thing grow? Was it slow at first and then quick, or what was that process like?
Yeah. So the thing is that it was actually very organic, and I actually didn't have a plan for that. It was actually just to have a party and to have fun and to bring everyone together that we worked with. And, for me, it was about, how can we do things in a unique way that only that certain medium could provide. So like, there was a lot of things that we could do in the magazines that you could only do in print and make it special. But yet we were very limited by page count. And here all of a sudden we were able to do an event, and we said, okay, well, if we're going to do an event, what can we do live that we can't do in print? And it's like, well, we interview people in the magazine. Well, hey, maybe now you can meet them in person, right? People want to be these characters. Hey, why don't we get people to dress up in costume? Right. And it was just that thinking of what can we do in live that we've always wanted to do in print, but just can't because it's print. And I think it just kind of grew out of that. And the thing is that I never thought it was going to be as big as it was. But the more it kept working, the more we kept doing. And luckily, I was a young kid at the time. I was 25, 26, 27. And, fortunately, the company was making money. So we didn't have to live by anybody else's rules. We could do whatever we want. And the rule was, how do we just have fun? And because I wasn't much older than our audience, so when I started, I was 21 and our average age was 14. So, 5 years later, 6 years later, our audience was average age, was still kind of younger, but they weren't much different than me. They liked what I liked what they like. So for us, it was just like, if you're going to have a party for your friends, what would you do for your friends? And that's exactly the approach that we took about it. Um, because it was very lonely at that time to be a geek or a nerd, because you were bullied or picked on for the things that you cared about. So for people really thought of us as their friend, and that's the way we spoke to people. And that was kind of the root of how and why it all worked, was because we shared that voice. That was our voice, and we didn't have contempt for our audience. It was, these are our peers, these are our best friends. What would we say to our best friend, and how would we talk to our best friend?
So, in the world of collectibles, first, is there a formula of how you make something collectible, digital or physical?
Yeah, there's definitely kind of like a base formula, right? And there's always this kind of funny rule, like, I'd rather sell one too few than one too many. Um, and there's definitely a magic to figuring out what that number is, in terms of a collectible. But there also has to be some driving interest for it. And sometimes, you might have a million people that are into something, but there might only be 10,000 people, that are willing to purchase something. And then how do you create something unique for those people, that are kind of those super fans or those core fans? And then how do you create something that's really, kind of above and beyond what they would be able to get somewhere else? So anytime that we're getting into a collectibles business, you really want to make sure that the people that you're appealing to, which is the core of the core, get something that's very unique, something that they feel special about, something that they feel like they could have only gotten through this unique circumstance. And then the ability for them to be able to then share that, or share that they have it with all the people around them, meaning that they were able to get something that, in a terrible way to say it, but I got something that you didn't or you couldn't, but it was only be through their efforts, that they were willing to go through in order to get that item, meaning that, you know, they were almost like in a way rewarded, for the fact that they participated all along this journey or that process. So, getting into the NFT world, we've been able to apply a lot of the principles of collecting, uh, into what we're doing into the NFT side of things. And it's something that I've been doing my whole life. So as Web3 is growing, and as these projects, the Project Kumite that we're working on grows, it's one of those things that we can apply a lot of those kind of principles to, where we can reward people for their participation.
Now, storytelling is the heart of what you're doing. Why is that?
So I come from a world where I grew up, collecting sports cards and comic books. And when you think about either one of those, it's actually all story, right? So in the sports world, it's not a static thing. It's moving. Somebody's hitting a lot of home runs, or they're getting, they're getting into the playoffs, or they're winning the World Series or a Super Bowl, or, you name it. There's this evolving storyline with those characters. And then certainly from the comic book side of things, everything is story, right? And everything about a story is about creating this emotional connection between you and the fans and the characters and the audience. And it starts with that. And unless you have that connection, it's very, very hard to do anything else, because then it just might be a picture, or it might be a digital item, or it might be a physical item. It might be something, but without that connection, without that emotion attached to it, it's just paper and a dream, is what we used to call sports cards or comic books. It's just paper and a dream. And without the dream, you just have paper. So when we started, when Scott Donald and I, my co-founder of Hero Maker, when we started the company, we started with the story. And I spent a lot of time building out literally 100-page Bible of what does the world look like? What's going on in the world? What are the exaggerated things that are happening in the future that might be happening now? And really kind of envisioned what the world looks like kind of in the near present. And then I wrote literally, I came up with the idea for many, many franchises. We have over 30 different franchises now that all take place within that universe. And there's a string that goes between all of them. And we started with that kind of story premise, and then the character creation side of it, and building these kind of evergreen stories and these evergreen concepts. And the first one that we started with is Kumite. And rather than just starting that out and start telling the stories, let's say through comic books or through film or television or gaming, we decided to start that in the Web3 world, with NFTs. And we saw that a lot of NFT projects that were coming out were actually doing a lot in the art side of things. Some of these projects are absolutely beautiful, but when you dig down a little deeper, there wasn't that kind of story behind them. I didn't have that emotional connection. And a lot of what was driving the interest in them was the mechanics and the valuation and the scarcity, not the story behind them. And when we started putting out the story, Kumite is about this epic battle between heroes and villains, and there's hundreds of characters that we created with thousands of attributes of weapons and armor and all kinds of things, and how they're going to battle each other. And we created this incredible battle platform. And then through that, we created 9,600 unique NFT characters. And through the NFTs, people are going to be able to buy those NFTs and then literally have commercial and licensing rights to those characters. So imagine us creating this universe and then giving you all these characters to participate in this world. And that's what's so exciting about, what we're doing here. And because we're starting you out with this story platform, it's going to be a lot easier for people to then tell their
So,
own
Gareb, in
stories.
the world of comic books, we can go back to some of the old Marvel characters and look at the number of years that they've survived on a foundation of good versus evil, and it resonates with people. Here you are today, though. You're making modern day heroes and defining the hero's journey. First of all, I got two questions in that area. Is how difficult is it to define a hero's journey? I mean, isn't good versus evil just a standard platform of how do you differentiate, how a hero becomes a hero and how they compare to the next hero, if I can say it that
Yeah.
way.
So what's interesting about, like what Marvel has been able to do and DC has been able to do with their iconic characters, and it's actually not all of their characters. It's a lot of the times it's the one that you see on the screen or in film, that have kind of stood the test of time. But there's two parts to the character side of things. One is the creation of the character, and then there's the stories that you tell. And one of the things that makes a character have this everlasting appeal is to have something evergreen about them. And and that's actually at the heart of what I've been working on at Hero Maker, is actually the idea of creating characters that I'm actually building out their world and their universe and what it looks like and how they act and who they are and who the people are around them and how their relationship evolves and who they are and those relationships that they have. And once you do that, then you can tell stories, because then if I set up this character for you and then something happens, something good, something bad happens, once you know where that character is coming from, you can start telling stories about how they would react to it. So I can throw something in there and see the reaction of that. And when you're looking at the hero's journey, and that is, by the way, the philosophy of the entire company, is not just putting out an NFT project, but actually taking the NFT holder and the fans on that hero's journey. And the whole purpose is taking them on that journey. And it's not our journey, it's their journey. And that's really where everything changes about Web3 and the NFT world. So when you look at some of these centralized media companies that come out with content, right? So take Spider-Man as a perfect example, one of my favorite characters of all time. But when I see the Spider-Man film, I'm going on, and everybody watching the films are going on Spider-Man's journey. It's his hero's journey. When I go to Top Gun, I'm on Tom Cruise's journey. When I go to see Batman, I'm on Batman's journey. And what we're trying to do through Web3, it's not about us and it's not about taking the user on our journey or what we see as our character's journey. It's about people going on their journey. And when they have these characters that they own, these NFTs, it's about creating a platform for them to go on their hero's journey. So we're creating a platform that when they own these characters in this world that we're creating, it's all about how do we support them in going through the trials and the tribulations for them to become the hero of their universe. And that's really kind of the heart of what makes us so different and where I think the future of the entire content and storytelling is going.
You playing the role of the hero or the avatar going on the journey is a very unique concept, and it's opening up a new dimension into this Web 3.0. I want to two things I want to ask you. First of all, why are you doing this? You already got a very successful Comic Con and the communities that you built. Why go down the road of the Web 3.0 and the NFT when you could be doing anything in life, Gareb? You've already reached a lot of success, but what is it about this new journey that drives you to bring it into into this world?
I think we're at this kind of momentous time where a new medium is being created. And this is absolutely the birth of something that is going to be the absolute future of where things are going. And so for me, it's like I've been there at the birth of the original web and how that started, and I was there at the birth of the social media and of Web 2, which was kind of the read write component to it, and then to be part of what is absolutely happening now, which is the birth of Web 3, which is read write own. It's completely changing the dynamics of ownership and participation and enabling people to, for the first time, truly benefit from the engagement that they're creating and to benefit from the support that they can give, right? So many times people have contributed so much to these franchises or these characters, but yet they've never benefited from that success. And they've also not been able to have an influence in how they go, right? So how many times do you see characters, and I've been to I can't countless movies or TV shows or read countless comic books where I was like, oh, I could have done a better job. Oh, if the character only did this, if the character only did that, I could have written a better film. I could have written a better TV show. I can't believe the way they ended it. That comic book was terrible. I wish they would have done this with the character, right? Everybody has had those thoughts in their mind about content that they've been able to see or read or consume, but they've never been able to do anything about it because they've never been in a position where they can control that or have a say in that. And for the first time, fans, users, the community, the NFT owners will now have a say in how that goes. And certainly with them having characters that they have in our universe, in their universe, now all of a sudden they could write the stories that they want to tell. And we're going to support them in there. You know how many times I've seen big media companies shut down fan sites or tell fans they can't do this or they can't do that. And they're the heart of what keeps those franchises going. So for me it's about taking the opposite approach rather than saying you can't do this, you can't do that. It's how can we support you in your efforts to create more content built on this platform and these franchises that we created for you. And that to me is the heart of what Web3, and that's what drives me, is that I can finally, for the first time, you know, get into this new medium and be a leader and really kind of show people, hey, this is where it's all going. You know, this is what we want to do for you, right? And if we let the bigger media companies control that, they're not going to let people do that, right? So it's going to be required for companies that are starting up like ours to be able to take these massive resources and these massive access that we have, but I don't have a horse in that other game, right? Like I don't have to worry about, protecting some other interest that I have. We can go in this and develop something new right from the start. That's exactly the way it should be.
How does a person get involved with the franchise with Hero Maker? Are you ready for that right now, or is it a little ways away?
Yeah. So our first franchise is called Kumite, and the Genesis collection is coming out on June 16th. So people will be able to purchase them through the minting on our website, or eventually they'll be able to purchase them in the secondary market on OpenSea or almost any other kind of exchange. But the good thing is that once they're available, then anybody could buy one. And then with that buyer, there is commercial rights and there's licensing rights and derivative rights, meaning that people will be able to create a lot of things. Like we call it the maker economy. People can be able to make t-shirts and hats and like all kinds of fun stuff. And we want to be able to support them and give them the resources and tools. And it's also everything from making their own costumes, making their own comic books, creating their own characters. And we want to be able to support people in doing that. And the more they do that, we're going to be coming out with our Hero Maker token so that people now will be able to get rewarded for those efforts. And create a lot of utility around that. And we're going to create a fight tournament, so that people can participate, with other members of their family from the Kumite tournament. And so there's a lot of things that we're going to be able to do. And once people get involved, then they're part of the community. So imagine owning one of 9,600 characters in the Marvel universe, right? What would you do? And it's the same kind of thing. We're creating this incredible universe of characters. You now have a character in there. What would you do? And by creating all the platform and the story and the other characters and the tournament and how it all works, it's going to be a lot easier for people to be able to tell those stories in there. So literally, from day one, people are going to be able to participate, in this community.
Well, Gareb, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show today and listening to the new venture of Hero Maker. Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always fun to talk about superheroes and now superheroes in the NFT world. So kind of putting them all together is my dream come true.